All right, man. November 2022 Blu-rays. We're gonna jump right into it with again in the first week, like last month, a whole bunch of 4K upgrades. Plenty of Christmas films here, guys. We have National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, A Christmas Story, and Elf. Three films that are pretty revered and loved. So Christmas Vacation, pretty classic film, one of the staples of National Lampoon's films they put out. A real timeless film. This is one that I haven't seen in quite some time. It's been a pretty long time, actually. But you know what? On 4K, I think this is the perfect time to upgrade it. As well as with A Christmas Story, which is a film that is so commonly on TV. You can see it every year, every opportunity. But if you want that 4K upgrade, it's here. And Elf, which is the more contemporary, I guess contemporary enough. What was that? 2003. I do like how there is new artwork on all three of these releases, by the way. Elf especially looks like it's a new shot that I hadn't seen before, whereas with Christmas Vacation and Christmas Story look like just rephotoshopped covers. But hey, man, you know what? It's the effort that counts. And we also have The Running Man. And now here's the thing: is that Starship Troopers, it's in 4K here, but I don't know if this is an upgrade or if there was another 4K or not, because this is a steelbook, and I don't, with Best Buy doing as many steelbooks as they have now, I don't know if this had a previous release or not. But Starship Troopers, great Paul Verhoeven film. I think a lot of people have seen this one. They made a whole handful of sequels, and some spin-offs, I believe. Spin-offs slash sequels. But the first one, I think, is a pretty solid, albeit a little bit long, great kind of war kind of a farce. Another 4K upgrade here, we have Joe Dante's Piranha. This is coming from Scream Factory or Shout Factory, either or. And of the Jaws ripoffs, I think this is one that's definitely one of the most popular. It's been a couple years since I've seen it, but I remember liking this one a lot. This got a sequel, The Spawning, directed by James Cameron, which includes flying piranhas, and also got a remake as well, and a sequel to that remake. I always forget that Barbara Steele's in this, and she shows up in, I think, the third act. I won't be upgrading this. I just got that, well, not just got, but I got that last steelbook that they put out that had a new, I think, 2K transfer on that. So with a lot of these new releases, these upgrades they've been putting out, I don't know if they're doing any new features or not. I can't imagine as much if it's just a 4K upgrade, but it's there. If you don't have the previous release, go for it. As well as In the Mood for Love on 4K, coming from Criterion. I believe this as well already had a 4K overseas. There's a handful of titles. There was one of the Cozy Corner of cinema episodes I was talking about with a lot of the BFI titles, like the Seventh Seal, and the 400 Blows that were 4Ks that had Criterions in the US. I don't think that In the Mood for Love was a BFI release, but I'm pretty sure it had a 4K overseas. But either way, it's there if you want to grab it. So with some of the other titles on this day, let's see what we have here. A couple of new releases as well. Now this one is kind of strange because I don't know if I'm misremembering this or not, but the film Belle, which was a 2021 film, which I've seen, that's getting a 4K as well. I'm sorry, not a 4K, a steelbook. I'm sorry. But this already had a previous release from Shout Factory, so I don't really know what this is all about. If it's just a steelbook. So I mean, if you don't already have that and you're interested in it, there's that coming out on that day. Moving on here a little bit. So we're going to go to November 7th and the 8th. So on the 7th in Arrow, UK, we have Martin Scorsese's The Wolf of Wall Street coming to 4K. In the US, this already has a 4K from Paramount, I believe, but this is a new Arrow release with a new Blu-ray as well. I haven't looked at the features on this. I'm not going to be importing this. I have just the regular Paramount Blu-ray, but this is one of Scorsese's finest films in his filmography. Some film like this that's just energetic and is fast moving in the first half, but then in the second half is the complete antithesis and downfall of this main character, Jordan Belfort, and the lifestyle that is not sustainable and the consequences of it. I remember when this film came out, people were ridiculing the film for glorifying this kind of sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle, and Man, I tell you, if that's what you got from the film, man, then I guess you weren't paying close attention enough. I thought it was pretty clear, but hey, man, never underestimate a general audience like that. But it's one of Scorsese's best, one of his most entertaining. On November 8th, couple more 4K upgrades. We have the classic Casablanca coming out on 4K. This is a pretty mandatory upgrade, directed by the great Michael Curtiz. This will be, I think a lot of people probably already have previous releases of this. This is another one as well that I like. That I really like the new artwork that they did for it. It really just, they didn't just use the traditional poster, which would have been fine as well, that has been used on so many releases, but it's actually a really good looking cover. This is one that's a definite upgrade. I've had the DVD, I have the Blu-ray. I was gifted the VHS, so, but again, this is just one of the greatest films of all time, so I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how this one looks, as well as another great film, one of Clint Eastwood's best, from Kino Lorber. We have Escape from Alcatraz in 4K. I think this may have had a previous Blu-ray before, but this is its first time on 4K, and I don't know where they sourced the transfer from, if they did it themselves, but Kino's 4Ks, for the most part, are pretty solid. The ones that I've seen have been pretty great as well, and this is just a really great prison break film. And it's funny because I'm really not a prison film guy. I like prison break films, and this is one that even though you pretty much know how it's going to end and you know what's going to happen, it's very tense. Directed by frequent collaborator with Eastwood, Don Siegel. Did many of his films like Dirty Harry, Play Misty for Me, The Beguiled, as well as many great films as well, like Charlie Varick, The Shootist, of course, The Lineup with Eli Wallach. So this is a no-brainer for me, definitely one that I'm looking forward to grabbing, and I'm glad that Kino is getting more of these Eastwood titles, because they've already had Coogan's Bluff, High Plains Drifter, Two Mules for Sister Sarah, Joe Kidd, and that might be it. I don't know. Either way, moving on, man. So, on the same day, we have some more 4K upgrades. Saturday Night Fever coming to 4K. One that I've never seen, but Brian Sauer's a big fan, so I'm definitely going to be picking this up based purely on his recommendation, as well as The Power of the Dog in 4K. Now, here's the thing, is that it's kind of a shame that a lot of these Netflix titles are not getting releases unless a Criterion or another company picks them up, because companies like Netflix and Amazon, I've noticed, are not as willing to put their films out on physical media. I'm still waiting for releases of films like Dolomite Is My Name, for example. And while we have films, when you look at the ones they have put out, The Irishman, Marriage Story for Amazon, Sound of Metal, One Night in Miami, they're all Criterion titles. So I really hope that we can just get some separate releases on their own and not having to wait, because I really love to own some of these titles. Especially with Blonde that just came out, I really would love a Blu-ray of that or 4K, but if Criterion puts it out, fantastic, but I really don't want to have to rely on another company to pick up these titles. As well as Earth Girls Are Easy, coming from Vestron Video. This is, I think, an early Jim Carrey film. Never seen this one. This is one that I remember hearing about a long, long time ago. I didn't really know what it was, and I still don't really know what it is. But I've seen that title, and I cover a bunch. So, Vestron titles are cheap, man. They're $12-13, so even as like a blind buy, you're pretty much good to go. Another title coming from Unearthed, we have Christmas Cruelty, and I don't know what this is, honestly, but it's Unearthed, so I'm willing to give it a chance. I like to pick up a lot of their titles, because a lot of the titles that they ended up acquiring are usually pretty interesting stuff. For a recent release on this day, we have Pearl as well, directed by Ty West, and I know a lot of people really like this one. I thought it was okay. I didn't love it, didn't hate it, but Mia Goth's performance is pretty phenomenal in the film. I liked it much more than X. I really wasn't a fan of X, but Pearl, I think, is worth watching for sure, and I'm very curious about the next film in the trilogy, Maxine, that is coming out, I think next year, I believe. So, moving on from there, man, we have November 15th, and I'm going to correct myself quickly, because I just mentioned Pearl, and it's here as a Walmart exclusive, and then on the 15th, it's here as a regular release, so I'm not really sure what that's about, but either way, Pearl will be out then. Reservoir Dogs in 4K, Quentin Tarantino's film, influential, staple of the 90s right here, well-known crime film. I think probably one of the most well-known of the 90s. almost as much as Pulp Fiction, and it holds up a lot. I think the last time I watched this was right before Once Upon a Time in Hollywood came out. I went ahead and rewatched all 8 of his previous films, and this one, for a film that I hadn't seen previously, and before then, I'd said, like, since probably high school, or maybe even before then, I'd maybe only seen it once or twice. I was really surprised at just, maybe not surprised at how much it held up. I think it definitely still has some of those early kind of Tarantino script issues that I have, where some of the characters are almost act like Tarantino in a way, or they are very cocky, very eccentric, which isn't a detriment to the film. I mean, I'm not gonna, fault the film for that, but I look at another film like True Romance that Tarantino wrote and has a lot of the same kind of characters. So it's definitely an early Tarantino work, but still fantastic. And I think pretty much everyone has seen this, as well as Death Game is getting what looks to be a standard release from Grindhouse Releasing. This was previously only available through their website on a 2-disc set, and it looks like this is just gonna get a full release. I talked about this on one of the episodes of Cozy Corner, and I love this film. I think this film is so much fun. I know the production on it is very wasn't as terrific. There was Seymour Cassel is dubbed in the film, but this was just a really wild, crazy film with Sandra Bullock and Colleen Camp as well. Speaking of Eastwood, and the ending of this film, I just guess, man, just oh boy, just watch the film, you'll see. The Infernal Affairs trilogy coming from Criterion. I have not seen these films, but I know they have a big fan base, and I'm very curious about them. I think they might be getting an overseas release as well. I don't know if from Criterion or not, but I thought I heard somewhere else bring these up. Wayne's World getting a 4K upgrade. This one that had a previous Blu Ray release from Paramount. I have not seen this film in quite some time. I remember being a really big fan of this film when I was younger, but if the jokes hold up or not, I really don't know. But Wayne's World is there. Also, another one that has a new artwork with it. Same with Reservoir Dogs as well. I like how a lot of these 4K, these companies are putting out these new 4Ks with new covers as well. One of a really terrific film coming from Shelf Select, which is another 4K upgrade, directed by Robert Zemeckis, is Used Cars.
Hi there. How you doing?
Jeez.
Say, this your $10? I saw it floating underneath the car and picked it up. Here you are, Mr. What's your name?
Stanley Dwowski.
Polish, eh? What a coincidence. Rudy Polanski, how are you? Hey, I like that watch, Stan. Great shoes. Love them.
Thanks.
So, Stan, you want to buy this Buick Centurion, huh? Good choice. Smart man. You got good taste. I'll tell you something. A lot of people don't have these days. Nice to see somebody finally walk on this lot who knows a good car when he sees one, I'll tell you. So, we read it up?
Yeah, well, actually, I was just looking.
Oh, hey, terrific. Terrific. That's what we're here for, Stan. Here you can look, browse, peek, touch, feel, taste, smell, do anything you want, take all the time you want. Nobody's going to pressure anybody around here, Stan. You know something, though, Stan? I really think you ought to buy this Buick. Mm-hmm. I think you ought to buy it today, right now. You want to know why? Because this Buick is you. The color is you. Look at it. This is your car. Stanley Dwowski is Buick Centurion convertible. Now, I know what you're thinking, Stan. You're thinking, can I afford to buy a car like this? Huh? Am I right? Seriously, Stan, you can't afford not to buy a car like this, and I'm going to make it easy on you. When you add this whole thing up, taking into account inflation rate, insurance savings, gas savings, ease, and comfort, you're going to come out $10,000 ahead after making this deal. Well, the prestige alone of owning a Buick Centurion convertible can't be measured in terms of dollars and cents. Am I right?
This film has Kurt Russell in it. It's got a great cast. Kurt Russell, Jack Warden, Joe Flaherty. I mean, it's just a hilarious film. It's one of these films that is so close to just being like a comedy classic. I do think that it is just too long. But man, there are some really terrific and real funny parts in this film. There's a whole great gag involving a dog underneath a car that I won't give away. But if you haven't seen this film before or didn't own a previous release, this is one to keep an eye out for. Because this previously had a release from Shout Select as well. And it also had a Twilight Time release. So you can... If you missed those releases, you can get it on the 4K, man. Also on this day, the Sonny Chiba collection. Now this one's really interesting because I think the only Sonny Chiba film I've seen is probably The Street Fighter, which is a film I really liked a lot. This is coming from Shout Factory, and I have not seen any of these films. They have, I'll just name them off. You have Yakuza Wolf 1, Yakuza Wolf, I Prefer Murder, Yakuza Wolf 2, or no, wait, is it Yakuza Wolf? Yeah, I Prefer Murder. Yakuza Wolf 2, Extend My Condolences, Bodyguard Kiba 2, Shogun's Shadow, Samurai Reincarnation, and Swords of Vengeance. I have not seen any of these films, but I will definitely be grabbing this set, unquestionably. We've got a new Elvis 4K, Blue Hawaii. You've not seen this one. I mentioned in my 1956 episode, the only Elvis film I'd seen was Love Me Tender, which I liked a lot, and I've not seen this one, but going to keep an eye out for it. A recent film, a 2022 release, one that got a lot of talk, was Moon Age Daydream, the the David Bowie experimental documentary. Really cool, man. I really love this film, man. I thought it was just terrific. And the crazy thing is, I'm not even a big David Bowie fan. Truthfully, I haven't heard a lot of his music. I know the hits and all that, but I'm very much a casual, like, heard it on the radio kind of guy. But the way the documentary is structured, without any interviews, with just having it be all this archival footage with Bowie's narration over it, it's a really just, it's a film made to be seen theatrically. And if you didn't get an opportunity to go see it theatrically, then now you have the opportunity to. Now this one's weird, man. You have R.I.P.D. 2, Rise of the Damned. If you remember the film R.I.P.D. from 2010, I think, with Jeff Bridges and Ryan Reynolds. I remember when that came out, and it was not a critically well-received film, and I don't think did very well at the box office, so this is a very strange kind of film to make a sequel to. It stars Jeffrey Donovan, who I think is a great actor, but I don't know, who is looking forward to this, man? A re-release, or, I'm sorry, not even a re-release, but a release from Kino Lorber, The Valachi Papers with Charles Bronson. This had a previous release from Twilight Time, and I think this might be its first Blu-ray since that Twilight Time release. This came out on the heels of The Godfather and was made around the same time. And I know that there was an interview I saw where Bronson was a little apprehensive about the notion of this being a Godfather ripoff, this sort of like mob film. And it's really not a ripoff, but the timing is just very, The Godfather did come out first, and I think had a lot more publicity behind it. So this film it's not bad, it's not great. It's very, I'm not crazy about it, but I think if you're a Bronson completist, then I think you should definitely check this one out. It's more of a crime film than anything. The new one of two of Claire Denis' films that came out this year, Both Sides of the Blade, with Juliette Binoche and Vincent Lindon, who you might remember recently as who played the father in Titane. Really like this film, and it's crazy because I was not crazy about High Life, which was her previous film, and I actually just saw her new film as well, Stars at Noon, and I really wasn't a fan of that. So she's kind of hit or miss for me. I haven't seen a lot of her films, but Both Sides of the Blade was one that I thought was very well done. A very good character drama about this relationship that's starting to get fractured with another person that enters into the picture. Yeah, just really like this one. This is definitely one of the highlights of the year for sure. Let's see, anything else on this day? Looks like that is it. Airplane 2, the sequel. I've not seen that. I don't know. I think that may have gotten a previous release. I don't know, actually. Some of these I don't know if got previous releases or not, so just bear with me. But from the 21st to the 22nd, from Indicator, we have another one of their big box sets. We have Magic, Myth, and Mutilation, the micro-budget cinema of Michael J. Murphy in 1967 to 2015. Now, there are a whole lot of films in this set, and I could not name you one of them. I don't know any of these films, but if Indicator is willing to put these films out in a big set like this, it's got to be interesting. All their box sets are top-notch. I'm going to be waiting for reviews and kind of general opinions before I end up importing this, if I do end up importing this. But I'm very curious about this one. A big title from Criterion that a lot of people were surprised to see get released is WALL-E from Pixar. Now, there was a lot of discussion about whether or not this meant that Criterion had extended a deal with Disney and Pixar. I've heard mixed back and forth things. I've heard some people say that this is a one-off and that it depends on how well this does, which I think it'll do well as is. Because I know a lot of people are trying to get the straight story from David Lynch, which would be a pretty obvious title for Criterion to put out that Disney owns. I don't really, I mean, as for the film itself and the release, I don't think it's one of, I didn't have a real opinion on this getting released. I saw WALL-E theatrically, and I really didn't really leave much of an impact on me. It's a weird title for them to put out. I don't know what kind of selection they had to work with, if it was just any Pixar film they could have done, but I mean, I'm not shitting on the film or anything like that. It's not a bad film. It's just not for me. But it's just a strange title for them to put out because it's such a high profile film that I don't know if they're expecting general consumers to pick up this release anyways, even without owning Criterion films. But I'm very curious how that does. More interestingly, on this day is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles coming to 4K as well. And the big thing with this release is over an hour of never before seen deleted and extended scenes, and I think that's kind of what made me want to pull the trigger on this release.
So what do you do for a living, Neil Page?
Marketing.
Marketing, super, fabulous. Isn't that nice?
Look, I don't want to be rude, but I'm not much of a conversationalist, and I'd really like to finish this article. A friend of mine wrote it, so...
Don't let me stand in your way, please. Don't let me stand in your way. The last thing I want to be remembered as is an annoying blabbermouth. You know, nothing grinds my gears worse than some chowderhead who doesn't know when to keep his big trap shut. If you catch me running off with the mouth, just give me a poke in the chops. Oh. Oh, that feels good. Oh, God, I'm telling you. My dogs are barking today. Whew. Oh. That feels better.
Because the film itself, it's one of, I mean, it might be my favorite John Hughes film, I really don't know, but the back and forth between Steve Martin and John Candy is unmatched in this film, and the emotion that goes into the John Candy character in this. It's just so, it's one of the most memorable scenes in the film, but this has been released on Blu-ray a bunch of times. It's gotten a steelbook, it's gotten a 2-disc, a 1-disc, so I don't have any of those releases, but this will be a purchase, definitely. I'm very much looking forward to grabbing this as well. Another 4K upgrade coming from Kino Lorber, one of my favorite films of all time, Clint Eastwood and High Plains Drifter.
Whatever this gent wants, he's to have.
There's orders of Mr. Drake and Mr. Allen.
I want every man in the regiment to have one of these nice rifles.
What regiment?
City of Lago Volunteers.
Never heard of them.
Well, you ought to. You're in it. So are you, all of you out there. I want you all out on the street in 10 minutes for drill.
This is one that I'm very conflicted on whether or not I want to upgrade, because this will be my third time owning a film. I had the standard Blu-ray. I bought the Kino, I was gifted the Kino Blu-ray whenever it came out. And with the 4K, it's a film that I love so much. It's probably my favorite Eastwood Western. It's such a dark film and such but also darkly comedic at times, the way that Eastwood's character treats the townspeople. Where you have the film where Eastwood comes into town, and this town is going to be overtaken by these criminals. So they hire Eastwood to protect them because we're all pretty cowardly. But there's something else going on here in the town, a big secret that is slowly revealed, even until the final seconds of the film, where you have one last plot twist. And it's a phenomenal film, and I think one of the best, one of the truly great post Wild Bunch westerns to put in a new era of films, kind of putting an end to the John Wayne, Gary Cooper era and into a new age. And I know that Gary Cooper was very offended by this film, unfortunately, but he's coming from a different time period where the violence in this film is much more gruesome than, not exploitive, but gruesome in terms of bloody than a lot of the westerns that came before it, including a very gnarly torture sequence that is played throughout the film. But whether or not I'll upgrade is really up in the air. But if you haven't already had this film owned, or you haven't seen this film, you should definitely pick this one up. Malcolm X coming to 4K from Criterion. This is a Spike Lee film that I haven't seen. Truthfully, I've always heard kind of mixed things on it. I think most people generally like the film, but it's not one that I hear universally acclaimed as one of Spike Lee's best. But I'm definitely curious about this for sure. Mystery Men coming to 4K from Kino Lorber. A film that I'm admittedly not a fan of, but Brian Sauer's a big fan of this film. This film has its own big cult following, and I think this had a previous Blu-ray as well. That seems to be the theme of the episode, is not knowing whether these films had previous releases or not. Okay, it did have a previous release. This already had a 4K overseas, so this will be a second release for it, but now you don't have to import, even though 4Ks are region free, so there's that. Another 4K upgrade coming from Shout Factory, Rollerball, coming to 4K. I think this had a release from Scorpion Films. I might be wrong about that. I forgot who put it out. Now here's the weird one, is that VCI is putting out Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things in 4K, directed by the late great Bob Clark of, actually talking about earlier, Christmas Story fame and Black Christmas. Now this is a weird release to put out, because Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, I don't think the elements in that film are all the best, and VCI's track record on quality is a little iffy. I'm not throwing shade at them, but I'm very curious what this will look like. I love the new art they did, by the way. At least I'm pretty sure it's new art. I haven't seen this before, but Children Should Play with Dead Things is not a film I'm really all that big into. It's all right. I'm a big Bob Clark fan, but this one is more of a curiosity kind of film to watch rather than anything else. But I mean, it's there if you don't already have the previous release. This film as well. This was a Finnish film I saw earlier this year that I completely forgot about, but it's finally getting a Blu-ray, is Hatching. This got a lot of talk, and then it came out. This was put out by IFC Midnight, and not a film I'm really a fan of, but truthfully I forgot it even came out, but I wanted to highlight it. Anyways, but a film I do want to highlight, which is a film that I talked about on one of the last, well, at the time of recording this, the last Cozy Corner episode, but one of my favorite films of the year, even though it's technically a 2021 film, is the film Hold Me Tight, directed by Matthew Amalric. And this was, I've talked about this all in that episode. This was just one of my favorite films of the year. It's just such a beautiful, heartbreaking, tragic film with one of two of the year's just best performances from Vicky Krieps and the father, whose name I keep forgetting again, or I didn't know last time. I think it's Ari Werthalter. This is just a beautiful film, man. This is a definite buy for sure. I don't know how quickly I am to rewatch this, but it's one that I definitely want to highlight for sure if you haven't been aware of it already. On the 25th, 2 4Ks coming from Vinegar Syndrome. We have Roadhouse coming to 4K. This is part of the, I think, VCA collection. I get confused on what their collections are. A film that as well has been put out a bunch on Blu-ray, including by Shout Select, and I actually already have the Shout Select Blu-ray. But I'll be getting this 4K as well. And the Invisible Maniac 4K, which I think was included with the package, which is actually just came in the mail today at the time I'm recording this, and I might actually already have this, but I don't know. I'll have to take a look at that. But let's see. So, at the end of the month, we have on the 28th and the 29th, big day for a lot of stuff, and the big one for me, coming from 88 Films, is one of my all-time favorite films, which is Ruggero Deodato's Cannibal Holocaust.
Watch it, Alan, I'm shooting. Oh, good Lord! It's unbelievable, it's horrible. I can't understand the reason for such cruelty. It must have something to do with some obscure sexual rite, or with the almost profound respect these primitives have for virginity.
Now, this one has already been announced as getting a 4K from Grindhouse Releasing, as well as the Beyond getting a 4K coming in 2023. The thing with this release, because it is a UK release, is that this will be an edited version of it with all the animal violence cut out, as with previous releases of the film from the Shameless Blu-ray that came out a couple years ago. So if you want a completely uncut version, then you can just go ahead and wait for the Grindhouse Releasing 4K that's coming out. But I already have this pre-ordered. I mean, this is just one of my all-time favorite films. It's one of the few tattoos that I actually have is of this film. I mean, I could talk about this film for hours and just what it means to me. And when I mentioned before American movie of films that you no longer love, they go at a higher echelon level. This is one of just the most important pieces of art I've ever consumed in my life. You can just talk about it for hours. So definite upgrade. I mean, definite purchase there, and I'll definitely be grabbing the Grindhouse Releasing 4K as well when that's released. Arrow's putting out Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves in 4K. I think this is getting the full treatment, the full deluxe kind of packaging they do. This is a big title for me to get. I don't think I've ever heard much talk about the film, honestly. I think this is a UK only release, but it's a 4K, so you can go ahead and import it, or it might come later, like the True Romance 4K. So there's that. I've never seen this one. Studio Canal is putting out King Kong from 1976 in 4K with Jeff Bridges and Jessica Lange. And this has a Blu-ray right now from Shout Factory, so this will most likely be getting a 4K in the future. And talking before about some of the films that came to Criterion that have a 4K now, Curzon Film World is putting out Wings of Desire in 4K, directed by Wim Wenders, starring the late great Bruno Ganz. And again, this could probably come to 4K in Criterion soon, but just a heads up on those. This one got delayed. It was Dragons Forever coming to 4K. This was supposed to come out a couple months ago, and I was originally going to pre-order this because I hadn't seen it, but I was curious. I pretty much will buy anything Jackie Chan, but I never did, and I'm kind of glad I didn't because I did not know this got delayed this long. I saw it didn't get released, but getting delayed is I was not aware it was this far out for that. Severin have a couple titles coming out on this day. Well, on the previous day, Macumba Sexual, but they're also putting out Libido, Mansion of the Living Dead, Blood Hunt, and The Shadowed Mind, which I have not seen these films, but I'm very curious about. Perfect time around the Black Friday sale, as is. I don't know, these probably won't be a part of the sale, but Train to Busan coming to 4K. Now, this is not an HDR version of it, and it is already getting a 4K overseas as well, so be wary if you do plan on upgrading this to 4K. Let's see here. Some more stuff coming from the guys over at Diabolic for Cauldron Films. We have Convoy Busters starring Maurizio Merli. This might be a Polizzi Tetsi film, which I haven't seen. Truthfully, I have not seen a lot of Polizzi Tetsi films, but very curious about this one. We'll be purchasing this. I just bought Contraband from them actually not so long ago, and they're also putting out Shanghai Joe, which I guess is a collection. I don't know if these are multiple films or not, because it has different titles here, but Shanghai Joe coming to Blu-ray there, as well as got a couple other things coming up. Burning Paradise coming from Vinegar Syndrome, which I believe is part of the package. Let's see here, and another recent one, Emily the Criminal, which I thought was pretty good, and Detective Story with Kirk Douglas, which I'm not familiar with, but I think that might be it for this month. Yes, looks like that will be it. Okay, so that is it for the November 2022 Blu-rays. Oh, that's right. Almost Rainbow also comes out on this day, which I had just seen a little while ago. And this is one that I thought was okay, but I think one that a lot of people probably have grown up with or have some nostalgia over. It's a very 90s film, man. But I thought it was an okay film, but keep an eye out for that because it has a new restoration on that. It's just a regular Blu-ray, but it had a new transfer and all that. So that'll be it for the month, guys. So keep an eye out on a lot of these titles, and that is all I got. So come back next month for some more Blu-ray goodness.